The setting sun cast long shadows through the workshop window as Daniel carefully adjusted the microservos in an old agricultural drone. His hands, marked by years of work, moved with a practiced precision, even though arthritis made every movement ache. Nearby, his elderly German shepherd, Rex, rested on a worn-out cushion, his gray muzzle twitching as he dreamed. "Almost done, old friend," Daniel murmured, tightening the final connection. The drone's sensors flickered on, humming quietly. A small victory that he cherished more and more these days. At 73, Daniel had settled comfortably into the slow rhythm of small-town life. His workshop, a converted garage cluttered with spare parts and half-finished projects, had become his retreat. It was much simpler than the massive warships he had once commanded, yet strangely, it brought him a deeper satisfaction. Stretching with a soft groan, his back resisting, he called, "Come on, Rex, time for our walk." Rex perked up, rising slowly as they began their familiar routine. Finish work at sunset, walk through Henderson's woods until twilight, then head home for a quiet dinner. Simple, predictable, safe. The forest path embraced them with its quiet familiarity, fallen leaves softening their steps as they wandered deeper into the woods. Among the towering oaks and whispering pines, Daniel found a sense of peace he couldn't find anywhere else. In these quiet moments, he could almost forget the battles that haunted his dreams, the flash of plasma cannons, the screech of tearing metal, the vast silence of space swallowing final screams. Suddenly, Rex stopped, his hackles raised, a low growl rumbling in his throat. "What is it, boy?" Daniel squinted into the deepening shadows. Something felt different. The air seemed to pulse with an energy he hadn't sensed in decades. Instincts, long dormant, stirred. Time to go back, he decided. They made their way home cautiously, Rex's gaze alert, scanning every shadow. The feeling grew stronger as they approached Daniel's small house on the edge of town. A blue light flickered behind his curtains, light that shouldn't be there. Reflexively, his hand moved to where his weapon had once rested, though he hadn't worn it in years. "Stay here," he commanded Rex, advancing carefully toward the front door. Just as he reached for the handle, it opened on its own. In the doorway stood a woman who was unmistakably not human. Her skin glowed with a luminous blue, her eyes a deep violet like distant galaxies. She wore a bodysuit that shimmered, shifting colors with every movement, like oil on water. "Daniel Rhee," she spoke, her voice resonating with harmonic tones that he felt in his chest. "The years have treated you well, ancient guardian." He took a step back. "Who are you? How did you get into my house?" She smiled, a smile that sent an unfamiliar thrill through him. "I am Leah of the Stellar Concord, and I've traveled across 12 galaxies to find you." "You must be mistaken," Daniel replied, shaking his head. "I'm just an old man who fixes machines." "Are you?" She stepped closer, the air around her crackling with energy. "Or is that simply what you've chosen to believe?" Her fingers grazed his cheek, sending a tingling warmth across his skin. "The star flow still lives within you, Daniel. Dormant, yes, but far from gone." Rex growled again, though his tone held uncertainty. Leah's violet gaze fell on him, and immediately he quieted, wagging his tail slightly. "Even your companion senses the truth," she said with a hint of amusement. "Would you like to remember who you truly are?" "I know who I am," Daniel replied firmly, though even as he spoke, strange images swirled in his mind. Crystalline cities suspended in space, battles fought with energy drawn from the stars, solemn vows spoken under triple moons. Leah's smile deepened. "Do you now? Perhaps you can explain why your dreams are filled with worlds you've never seen. Why you find such peace in these woods, where Earth's ley lines run strong and deep." Daniel's heart pounded. "How do you know about my dreams?" "Because I've been watching, waiting for the right moment." She moved even closer, her alien scent filling the air, something like stardust and ozone. "My people are dying, Daniel. We need the strength of the ancient guardians. We need you." "I'm too old to save worlds," he said, though his voice wavered. "Age is but a shell," Leah whispered, her face inches from his. "Let me show you." Before he could object, her hand pressed firmly against his chest, and a surge of energy flooded through him, both hot and cold. His knees buckled, but she held him up with unexpected strength. What are you doing?" he gasped. "Awakening what lies within," she replied, a playful tone in her voice. "Don't tell me you're afraid, ancient guardian, the man who once faced down the Void Armada." Images erupted in his mind, enormous ships as vast as cities, hovering in space, weapons capable of shattering planets, and himself, centuries younger, channeling powers he had long forgotten. This can't be real, he managed. Is it not? Leah's hand moved to his face, and where she touched, years of wariness faded. Your body remembers, even if your mind doesn't. Feel it, Daniel. Feel the star flow awakening. Energy coursed through him like liquid fire, straightening his back, loosening joints that had long been stiff. His vision sharpened, colors around him growing more vibrant. The first awakening is always the strongest, Leah said, supporting him as waves of power surged through him. Was it his imagination, or did her hand linger on his skin a moment longer than needed? And watching you remember, I must admit, is a rare delight. Why me? He asked, his voice stronger, deeper. Because you were always the strongest, she replied, holding his gaze with those violet eyes. And because some things are written in the stars. Her fingers traced a pattern across his chest, leaving a faint, tingling glow. Rest now. Tomorrow, your true awakening begins. As she stepped back, Daniel found himself standing straighter than he had in years. In his reflection, he saw a face that seemed younger, with eyes burning with a long-forgotten fire. I'll return at dawn, Leah said, heading for the door. She paused, glancing back with a smile that sent a warmth through him. Try not to miss me too much, ancient guardian. And then she was gone, leaving Daniel standing in his living room, his body humming with power he hadn't felt in ages. Rex watched him, tail wagging knowingly. Daniel flexed his fingers, marveling at the strength, the absence of pain. Part of him wanted to dismiss it all as a dream or some strange vision, but he could still feel the lingering warmth of her touch, the alien scent filling the room. What do you think, old friend? He asked Rex. Do we have one more adventure left in us? Rex barked once, decisively, and Daniel laughed, a sound he hadn't heard from himself in years. Outside, the stars shone brightly in the night sky. The light seemed to glow more intensely than before, calling to him with a melody that felt familiar, yet just out of reach. Sleep eluded Daniel that night, his body buzzing with unfamiliar energy, muscles twitching with a newfound strength. Restless, he paced around his modest living room, catching fleeting reflections of himself in windows and mirrors, each one revealing subtle, unexpected changes. The lines around his eyes had softened, his stance straighter, shoulders broader. This is madness, he muttered, running a hand through hair that felt thicker than it had in years. Rex watched him from his cushion, tilting his head in curiosity. The hours before dawn dragged by at a torturous pace. Daniel tried to keep himself occupied in his workshop, but his hands shook with the excess energy coursing through him. Even his tools felt wrong, too small, too primitive compared to. Flickers of memories danced at the edges of his mind, like fading stars. As the first light of dawn filled his workshop with a golden hue, he felt it again, that same electric charge in the air. Rex's tail started wagging before he even heard the knock. Daniel opened the door to find Leah leaning casually against the frame, her blue skin radiant in the morning light. She had changed into what looked like combat gear, though it hugged her figure in ways that made his breath catch. You didn't sleep, she noted, her violet eyes sweeping over him with an appreciative glint. The energy can be overwhelming at first. You could have given me a heads up, he grumbled, though he wasn't genuinely angry. And miss out on the chance to see you all riled up? She slipped past him, close enough for him to catch her scent, a charged fragrance, like ozone before a storm, that made his head spin. Besides, your body needed to adapt on its own. How do you feel? Like I'm losing my mind. He closed the door and turned to face her. None of this makes sense. Ancient Guardian, Starflow. I was a soldier, sure, but nothing like that. Leah's laughter was soft but challenging. Is that what they told you, or what you chose to believe? She stepped closer with a feline grace. Want me to show you more? Before he could answer, she pressed her hands against his chest, pushing him back against the wall. Energy surged between them, and this time, the memories came back with a piercing clarity. A vast crystalline chamber, pulsing with power. His younger self standing before a council of beings made of pure light, pledging oaths in languages that made reality tremble. Remember, Leah whispered, her face inches from his. Remember who you were, who you are. Her fingers traced symbols that glowed on his chest, each touch igniting his nerves. Daniel gasped as knowledge flooded back. Combat stances, energy manipulation techniques, star maps of worlds he had once helped protect. The star flow isn't just power, Leah murmured, her voice lowering in a way that sent his pulse racing. It's life itself, the force that connects galaxies, flowing through select vessels. Her hand moved to his face, thumb brushing his lower lip. Vessels like you. Daniel grabbed her wrist, startling both of them with his speed. And you, what's your role in all of this? Just a messenger. Her smile turned mischievous. I am whatever I need to be. Ancient, guardian, teacher. She twisted her wrist free with impossible fluidity, her fingers lacing with his. Guide, she added, pressing her other hand to his chest again, sending fresh waves of energy through him. Or maybe something more if you're worthy. This wave of energy was stronger, more precise. Daniel felt his muscles swelling, his joints rejuvenating, his vision sharpening. He struggled to maintain control as years seemed to shed away from him. Take it easy, Leah said softly, holding him steady as his knees buckled. Let it flow naturally. Don't resist the transformation. Why do you seem to be enjoying this so much? He managed through gritted teeth. She leaned closer, her breath warm against his ear. Because I am. The star flow is bound to life force, to passion. Her fingers moved over the tautening muscles of his chest. And watching you come back to life is intoxicating. The energy peaked, and Daniel barely suppressed a groan as the final wave of transformation coursed through him. When it faded, he felt lighter, stronger, as if decades had melted away. Leia stepped back, her violet eyes dark with something beyond simple interest. Much better, she said with a purr. But this is only the beginning. Ready for your first real lesson, ancient guardian. Daniel rolled his shoulders, savoring the lack of pain, the vitality surging through him. Part of him knew he should be more suspicious, should question all of this more carefully. But another part, a part that was growing stronger by the second, recognized the truth in her words. What exactly do you have in mind? He asked, his voice steadier, more resonant. Leah's smile was playful. Oh, I thought we'd start with something simple. She flicked her wrist, and a sphere of pure energy appeared between them, pulsing with life. Let's see if those hands remember more than just fixing machines. Rex barked eagerly, and Daniel felt a grin spread across his face, a young man's grin, full of excitement and challenge. Show me, he said. As the sun rose higher, Leia began to guide him in reaching for the stars once more. The energy sphere pulsed between them, casting ethereal shadows on the walls of Daniel's living room. Leah moved in a slow, measured circle around him, her motions precise. The star flow responds to intention, she explained, her tone shifting into one of instruction. Reach out, not with your hand, but with your essence. Daniel extended his awareness toward the sphere, feeling self-conscious until something shifted, a tingling sensation, like static, but more profound, more essential. There, Leah murmured, now close behind him. Her hand glided down his arm, leaving trails of blue energy. You feel it, don't you? The resonance. Yes, he breathed. The sphere now pulsed in sync with his heartbeat. Now let it flow through you, she said, her breath warm against his neck, like a song you knew in childhood. The sphere began to rotate, slowly at first, then picking up speed, colors swirling within it, deep purples, electric blues, stellar golds. Daniel felt power gathering in his chest, coursing through his veins like molten light. Good, Leah said, her tone satisfied. Now shape it. Give it form. Daniel focused, and the sphere stretched, morphed, twisting into a spiral of pure energy that moved through the air like a cosmic serpent. His muscles trembled, but the exhilaration was beyond words. Impressive, Leah remarked, circling to face him. Most take days to reach that level of control. Her violet eyes gleamed with a mix of pride and something more. But then, you were always remarkable. The energy construct faded as Daniel's concentration wavered. You speak like you know me. As if we've met before. Have we? As she moved closer, her blue skin seemed to glow with a mysterious inner light, almost as if it came from a dream. In his mind, he tried to dismiss the memories as mere fantasy. But vivid images kept flashing, vast halls made of living crystal, battles waged with weapons beyond the realm of physics. He could see her face, young but unmistakable, watching him from across a grand council chamber. How long? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. How long ago did this all happen? Time flows differently between dimensions. she responded, drawing a shape in the air that left streaks of light suspended between them. For my people, 3 centuries have passed since the Guardians fell. For Earth, she paused, her smile growing mysterious. Let's just say your history books may need a little revising. And now your people are dying. He didn't ask. Somehow, the knowledge rose unbidden, stirring a deep protective instinct within him. She nodded, a brief flicker of pain crossing her flawless features. The barriers between dimensions are weakening without the Guardian's power. She left the thought unfinished, and Daniel reached out to catch one of the light trails she'd left. It felt solid and warm, almost alive, in his hand. And you think I can help? An old soldier who's only just beginning to remember? Her laugh carried an edge. Old? Take a look at yourself. Daniel. He turned to the nearest window and felt his breath catch. Reflected back was a man who looked barely 40, strong-jawed, broad-shouldered, with just a touch of gray at his temples. But what struck him most were his eyes, which glowed with a blue-gold light, the same energy now flowing through his veins. The first awakening is almost complete, she said, moving beside him. Your true self is returning, but this is just the start. What comes next? He asked. She faced him fully, her expression losing its playfulness. War. My people need their guardian back. They need your strength, your protection. Her hand rose to rest gently on his cheek, and the energy that passed between them was softer, almost intimate. They need you. And you, he asked, unable to stop himself. What do you need? A flicker of something passed through her violet eyes, a memory, perhaps, or longing. What I need, she said softly, is for you to be ready for what lies ahead. She stepped back, breaking the contact. Rest tonight. Your body needs time to adapt to the changes. Tomorrow. Tomorrow? He repeated. Her smile returned, challenging and enigmatic. Tomorrow, we start your combat training. Let's see if those battle reflexes are as sharp as the rest of you. She turned to leave, but paused at the door, throwing a mischievous glance over her shoulder. Oh, and Daniel, you may want to get some new clothes. I doubt your old ones will fit. With that, she was gone, leaving only a faint scent of stardust and ozone in the air. Energy continued to hum through him. Rex, his old dog, trotted over and leaned against his leg. Daniel scratched behind his ears, marveling at how even such a simple gesture felt different now, his renewed strength giving him new sensations. What do you think, boy? He asked quietly. Ready for one more adventure? Rex's tail wagged, and above them, the stars seemed to pulse in time with the power flowing through him. Daniel flexed his hands, watching tiny arcs of energy dance between his fingers. Tomorrow would bring training, more awakening rituals, and unknown challenges. But tonight, he simply stood there, feeling the energy within him, recalling what it felt like to be young, to be powerful, to be more than just an old man with a troubled past. Somewhere out there, a civilization was waiting for their guardian's return. And somewhere deep inside, that guardian was coming back to life. The first awakening was complete. The true journey was about to begin. At dawn, as the sky shifted to amber, Leah returned. Daniel had been up for hours, his enhanced body buzzing with restless energy. He opened the door just as she arrived, dressed in a form-fitting combat suit that shimmered like starlight. Eager, aren't we? Her violet eyes sparkled with amusement. Good. You'll need that energy today. She led him to the clearing behind his house, where the morning mist still hung over the grass. Rex followed, sitting nearby with an alert gaze. Combat training begins with remembering your forms, she said, moving to the center of the clearing. Your body remembers them, even if your mind doesn't. She took a fighting stance, each movement smooth and precise. Mirror me. Daniel mimicked her, surprised at how naturally his body followed. They started moving through the forms, each stance flowing seamlessly into the next, growing in speed and complexity. His muscles seemed to remember. Good, Leah circled him, appraising his movements. Now, let's add power. She touched his shoulder, and energy surged through him, shifting his perception. Memories flooded back. Training in a vast hall made of living crystal, leading an army of warriors, channeling cosmic energy through ancient techniques. Focus, Leah's voice broke through the vision. She was close, too close, her scent filling his senses. Channel the star flow through the forms. He obeyed, watching as ribbons of blue-gold energy trailed his movements, each stance creating intricate, glowing patterns in the air. Beautiful, she murmured, her own energy interlacing with his. "You're remembering faster than I dared to hope." They moved as one, their energies merging as he reconnected with the power he'd once wielded. Daniel became more aware of the grace in her movements, the way her skin seemed to glow with an inner light, and the intensity of her violet gaze whenever their eyes locked. "Is this normal?" He paused, performing a complex turn that brought them face to face. "Are these feelings part of the training?" Leah's smile carried hidden meanings. "The star flow amplifies everything, Daniel. Physical strength, mental clarity." Her fingers traced a pattern on his chest, sending a shiver through him. "And emotional bonds." Before he could reply, she spun away, launching into a series of aggressive combat stances. "Defend yourself!" Energy bolts shot toward him. Instinctively, Daniel raised shields of pure force and counterattacked with moves he didn't remember learning. They fought across the clearing, their energy colliding in dazzling bursts. "Good?" Leah called out as she dodged one of his attacks. "But you're holding back. Show me what you're truly capable of, Guardian." She pressed on, pushing him to tap into deeper layers of his awakening power. With each strike, memories flooded his mind. Vast space battles, ships powered by stellar energy, ancient cities floating in the void, oaths spoken in a language that shook reality. Their fight reached a peak, energies crashing in a brilliant display. Finally, Daniel managed to gain the upper hand, pinning Leah against a tree with bands of pure force. "Yield," he growled, surprised by the command in his voice. Leah's eyes darkened with something more than combat excitement. "Make me," she said, the tension between them crackling like live electricity. Daniel became acutely aware of their proximity, of her rapid breathing, and of how her skin seemed to glow where his energy touched her. The sound of a branch snapping in the forest broke the moment. They quickly separated, both slightly breathless. "Well," Leah said, smoothing out her combat suit. "That was educational." Her smile now carried warmth. Ready for the second awakening? Daniel's body still hummed with power from their duel. "There's no better time." She approached him slowly, her hips swaying with deliberate grace. "Your energy is already heightened, so the process will be more intense." Placing both hands on his chest, Leah triggered a surge of power so overwhelming that Daniel's knees buckled. But she held him up, her strength surprising in such a slender frame. "Remember," she whispered, her lips brushing his ear. "Remember everything." Images and sensations crashed into him like a stellar storm. The birth of the Guardian Order, ancient beings of pure energy teaching them to harness the star flow, battles against forces that threatened to tear reality apart. And Leah, no, someone who resembled her, fighting alongside him generations ago. Who? Daniel gasped, struggling to understand the flood of memories. "Who are you really?" "I am exactly what I seem," she murmured, her hands tracing intricate patterns on his chest. "And so much more, just as you are." The second awakening reached its peak, power coursing through every cell in his body. Daniel felt himself transforming, his muscles and bones reshaping, neural pathways rewiring, years of damage burning away in waves of stellar fire. When it finally subsided, he stood taller, stronger, and his mind was clearer than it had been in years. But along with the clarity came questions. "These feelings," he said, catching her hand as she withdrew, "are they real? Or just a side effect of the process?" Leah's expression softened. "Does it matter?" "The starflow doesn't create feelings, Daniel. It only amplifies what's already there." She gently pulled her hand away. "But there are more immediate matters. Your world is about to expand dramatically." "What do you mean?" he asked, glancing at her as she gestured toward the sky. "Your training can't be completed here. The third awakening requires different environments." Her smile turned playful. "How do you feel about space travel?" Before Daniel could respond, a sleek, crystalline ship appeared above them, humming with familiar energy. "Time to leave your comfort zone, Guardian," Leah said, her voice a mix of challenge and promise. "The real training starts now." Daniel looked back at his house, at Rex watching from the porch, at the simple life he had built. Then his gaze shifted to Leah, to the ship, and to the future unfolding before him. "When do we leave?" Her answering smile was all the invitation he needed. The radiant pack moved lightly, and Daniel stepped closer for the last time, her scent overwhelming his enhanced senses. He tried to keep up as the crystalline ship's interior pulsed with living energy, with corridors shifting and reshaping as they walked. Daniel's enhanced senses detected patterns in the seemingly random movements, a language of light and geometry he was beginning to recall. Your vessel? He asked, following Leah through the transforming passageways. A guardian ship, she corrected, glancing back with that now familiar, mysterious smile. One of the last. It remembers you, Daniel said, feeling the connection. He reached out, placing his hand against the wall. The crystal surface warmed under his touch, and patterns of light spread from his fingers like ripples in a pond. Recognition flooded through him. Though not exactly memory, it was something deeper, that more primal. The ships are grown, not built, he said, the knowledge rising from deep within him. Very good. Leah's approval sent an unexpected thrill through him. The third awakening will restore your full connection to the vessel. But first, she paused before a doorway that opened into a vast spherical chamber. More training. The room's transparent walls offered a breathtaking view of Earth below and the stars above. Energy nodes pulsed at regular intervals throughout the space, creating a three-dimensional grid. Combat in zero gravity, Leah announced, triggering a control that eliminated the artificial gravity. Let's see how well you adapt. They floated upward, and Daniel's body responded with surprising familiarity to the weightless environment. More memories surfaced, battles fought in the void between stars, energy weapons capable of shattering planets, the dance of combat unbound by gravity. Remember, Leah called out, her blue skin glowing against the starfield behind her. The star flow exists everywhere. Gravity is merely a suggestion. She launched herself toward him, energy trailing from her hands like comet tails. Daniel reacted instinctively, generating force fields that propelled him out of her path while launching his own attack. They dueled through the chamber, using the energy nodes as anchor points and launch platforms. Each exchange brought more of Daniel's combat memories flooding back. His moves became more confident, more aggressive, drawing on centuries of forgotten experience. Better, Leah's laugh echoed through the chamber as she dodged one of his attacks. But still too earthbound in your thinking. Show me something new. Daniel reached deeper into his awakening powers. The star flow responded, surrounding him in a corona of blue-gold energy. He gestured, and the very space around them seemed to ripple. Leah's eyes widened. Space-time manipulation already? That's impressive. She had to twist desperately to avoid the distortion field he created. Their combat intensified, moving beyond physical forms into the manipulation of fundamental forces. Daniel found himself executing techniques he didn't consciously remember learning, while Leah matched him move for move. Her earlier playfulness was replaced by fierce concentration. Finally, he managed to trap her in a convergence of force fields. They floated face to face in the center of the chamber, both breathing hard. Yield? He asked, echoing their earlier encounter. This time, something shifted in her expression. Do you want me to? The question carried weight beyond their combat. The energy field between them pulsed with shared power, growing connection, and something that felt increasingly like destiny. I want, Daniel started, but before he could finish, pain lanced through his head. New memories crashed through his mental barriers. Great betrayal, ancient enemies wielding corrupted starflow, the fall of the Guardian Order, a desperate plan spanning centuries. Daniel. Leah's voice seemed to come from far away as her hands cradled his face, power flowing between them. Too much, too fast. Focus on my voice. Focus on now. The memory storm gradually subsided, leaving him shaken. They had drifted to one of the chamber walls, Leah holding him steady with both physical and energy contact. What was that? He asked, his voice rough. The price of remembering, she replied, her expression holding unexpected vulnerability. Some memories, some truths can only be confronted when you're truly ready. But am I ready? She gazed at him for a long moment, her violet eyes searching his face. Almost. The third awakening will restore everything, but Daniel. Her hand traced the contour of his jaw. Make sure this is what you truly want. Once it's done, there's no turning back. Would you tell me everything now if I asked? No. She answered honestly, which took him by surprise. Some truths are meant to be remembered, not spoken, but I'll share this with you. She stepped closer, her scent enveloping him. Everything I've done and everything I will do is to save my people, and you. Her fingers grazed his lips. You are more crucial to that than you yet understand. The air between them crackled with unspoken possibilities, but then Leah pulled away, restoring her usual mysterious smile. Rest, she instructed. The third awakening begins at the next solar alignment. You'll need your strength. She gestured, and a door appeared in the wall. Your quarters. Try to sleep, and try not to. Her eyes gleamed with mischief. Overthink today's training. As she turned to leave, Daniel reached out and caught her wrist. Leah, these feelings between us are as real as the starflow itself. She gently slipped free. Sleep well, ancient guardian. Tomorrow, everything changes. She disappeared through another doorway, leaving Daniel suspended in the starlit chamber, his body thrumming with power, his mind swirling with fragmented memories, and his heart uncertain, unsure of what was truth and what was manipulation. But as he made his way to his quarters, one thing became unmistakably clear. There would be no going back from what lay ahead. The third awakening awaited, and with it, answers to questions he had only just begun to remember how to ask. Sleep was elusive in the living crystal quarters. The ship's energy pulsed through his heightened senses, whispering fragments of ancient songs. He spent hours studying his reflection in the crystalline walls, a face now completely transformed, barely 40 years old, with eyes burning with inner fire. The door chimed softly just before what his body told him was dawn, though in space, such measurements held little meaning. Enter, he called, already knowing who it would be. Leah stepped inside, wearing a ceremonial robe that seemed to be woven from starlight itself. The sight of her took his breath away. She dropped the usual mask she wore, revealing her true power, which radiated from her like a solar wind. It's time, she said simply. She led him through corridors that shifted and reformed, eventually arriving in a vast chamber he hadn't seen before. In the center, a geometric pattern of crystals floated, pulsing with familiar energy. Beyond the transparent walls, Earth's sun rose over the curve of the planet. The third awakening must be performed at the convergence of stellar energies, Leah explained in a more formal tone. Are you ready? Will you finally tell me everything? Daniel stepped closer, drawn to the vulnerability in her voice. Try me. Leah took a deep breath. Our civilization isn't just on the brink of death. We are being hunted. The same forces that destroyed the Guardian Order have returned. They corrupt the starflow itself, turning it dark, using it to devour entire worlds. Images flooded Daniel's mind, planets crackling with black energy, entire civilizations crying out as their essence was consumed. The Void Hunters, he whispered, the name surfacing from buried memories. Yes, Leah's hands framed his face. And you? You were more than just a guardian. You were the one who found a way to fight them, to purify the corrupted starflow. But the cost? Show me, Daniel commanded, his voice vibrating with the power of awakening. Leah's eyes met his. As you wish, Ancient One. She pressed her forehead to his, and suddenly, the universe exploded behind his eyes. The final battle, thousands of guardians falling to corrupted power, his discovery of a purification method that could save everything, but at a terrible price. The decision to scatter the surviving guardians across time and space, sealing their memories until they could safely be awakened. His own choice to hide on Earth, knowing they would need him again one day. The memories crashed into him like a supernova. The pain they carried would have been fatal to his previous self, but his enhanced body withstood it, adapted, and integrated the force. As the initial wave passed, he gasped, knowing she understood everything. Tears of glowing energy streamed down Leia's face. I had to be certain you were ready, she said. The purification process nearly killed you last time, and now we need you to do it again, but on a far greater scale. The crystal array around them pulsed, resonating with their combined emotional energy. Daniel felt the ship's systems align with the rising power of the sun, building to levels never seen before. But this time, Leia continued, her hands sliding down to his chest, you won't face this alone. Her words hit him hard as the solar alignment reached its peak. Energy surged between them, stronger than any previous awakening. But this time was different. This time, he could feel Leia's essence merging with his own. Their shared consciousness expanded, encompassing not just the ship, but the stars, the very fabric of space-time around them. In that boundless moment, he saw everything. Her centuries of searching for him, her growing feelings, her struggles against mission protocols, and her desperate hope that he would be strong enough to face what was coming. As the energy ebbed, they stood close, their foreheads touching, breathing heavily. Their bodies glowed with shared power. Daniel could feel the weight of his restored memories, the immense responsibility of his position, and the humbling knowledge of the trials ahead. But there was something else he felt as well, something unexpected, unplanned, and undeniable. "You're shaking," he murmured, steadying her at the waist. The fusion wasn't meant to be this complete. Leia's voice trembled with awe and concern. The emotional bleed-through. Is it still just the star flow enhancing what's already there? He mirrored her earlier words. Her laugh was shaky. No, this is something different, something more. Daniel pulled her closer, feeling their energies align. We're about to face the impossible, and I'd rather face it with something real between us. The crystal chamber pulsed with energy as the third awakening completed, transforming them both. Outside, the stars spun in their ancient patterns, while below, Earth spun unaware of the storm that would soon break across its skies. But in that moment, suspended between who they had been and who they were becoming, Daniel and Leia held each other. Their combined power illuminated the chamber like a newborn sun. The time for secrets had passed. The time for action was imminent, and somewhere in the vastness between stars, ancient enemies who had believed the power was long destroyed felt its awakening and began to make their move. The true battle was about to begin. The warning alarm abruptly interrupted their connection. The ship's crystal walls flared crimson as space itself seemed to tear open in several spots around Earth's orbit. "They're here," Leia whispered, her violet eyes wide with recognition. "Faster than we expected." Daniel moved toward the command interface, guided by his restored memories. The tactical display revealed several Void Hunter ships emerging from dimensional rifts, massive, dark structures that absorbed both light and energy from their surroundings. "They sensed the third awakening," Daniel stated, his fingers flying across the crystalline controls. "We forced their hand." Leia hesitated as she placed her hand over his, stopping his tactical setup. "You don't have to do this. The purification technique. Last time, it nearly destroyed you. I won't hold you to those ancient oaths." He turned to her, taking in her otherworldly beauty, now enhanced by her readiness for battle. "Is this really about oaths?" he asked. "I brought you into this, awakened you, but fighting is a choice you must make." Daniel laughed, the sound rich with newfound energy. "Leia, you didn't bring me into anything. Yes, you woke me up, reminded me who I am. But this," he gestured to the approaching enemy fleet, "this is who I've always been. Who we've always been." The merged consciousness from the third awakening still lingered between them. He could feel her concern, her fierce desire to protect him, struggling against the awareness of what they were about to face. "Besides," he added, stepping closer and synchronizing his energy with hers, "I've seen your memories now too. You didn't pick me just because I was the last guardian. You chose me because we've fought together before, in lives you remember, and I'm just starting to recall." A proximity alert screeched as the first Void Hunter ship entered weapons range. Dark energy lashed out, testing their shields. "It's time to choose, Leia," Daniel said, his voice full of power. "Do we fight as partners, or do you continue trying to protect me?" The ship rocked with another hit. Leia's expression shifted through several emotions before settling into fierce resolve. "Partners," she declared, stepping into his personal space. "But when this is over, we're having a long talk about you turning my own arguments against me." "I'm looking forward to it," he grinned, then turned serious as more enemy ships arrived. "Status of the purification matrix?" Leia moved to the crystalline console, her fingers sending streams of charged light. "Even with our combined power, purifying this much corrupted star flow could kill us both." "I know," he said, "but it's the only way to stop them for good." He joined her at the controls, their energies automatically synchronizing. "Unless you have a better idea?" "Just one." She activated the ship's combat systems, weapon arrays sprouting from the living crystal hull. "Let's reduce their numbers first." Daniel's grin turned predatory. "I was hoping you'd say that." The bridge transformed around them, walls becoming transparent, offering a 360-degree view of space. More Void Hunter ships emerged from dimensional rifts, their dark energy tendrils reaching hungrily toward Earth. They're trying to create a consumption field, Leia observed, her hands guiding their ship through enemy formations. If they connect, Earth dies. Daniel channeled energy through the weapons array, firing bolts of purified starflow at the nearest enemy vessel. The dark ship's hull cracked, leaking corrupted energy into space. Not happening. They moved in perfect synchronization, their merged consciousness enabling them to coordinate without speaking. The Guardian ship danced through void space, its living crystal hull adapting to each assault, its weapons guided by centuries of combined combat experience. But the Void Hunters kept coming. For each ship they destroyed, 2 more emerged from dimensional rifts. Dark energy began to saturate the local space, making it harder to maintain their defensive fields. "We can't keep this up forever," Leia said, sweat beading on her blue skin as she maintained their protective screens. "The purification matrix is at full charge. It's now or never." Daniel nodded grimly. "Get us to the center of their formation. We only have one shot." The ship accelerated, taking hits that would have destroyed lesser vessels. The living crystal groaned under the strain, but held firm through their combined willpower. As they reached the heart of the Void Hunter fleet, Leia turned to Daniel. "Whatever happens next," she hesitated, then pulled him into a fierce kiss. Energy crackled between them as their auras merged completely. "I should have found you sooner." "You found me exactly when you were meant to." He pressed his forehead against hers, their combined power building to unprecedented levels. "Ready?" "Ready." Together, they channeled power through the purification matrix. The ship's crystal structure began to glow, shifting from its usual translucent state to pure radiant energy. The matrix hummed, drawing from their merged life force and amplifying it through ancient geometries. Pain pierced them both. As the process began, purifying the corrupted starflow required more than just power. It needed essence, spirit, the very force that made them who they were. Their bond, forged through battles and awakenings, went beyond either of these things, granting them strength far greater than what they could achieve individually. The wave of purification erupted from their ship, a sphere of pure golden light expanding across space. Wherever it made contact with the void, Hunter ships, the corrupted energy started to shift. Dark tendrils twisted and struggled, resisting the cleansing power. Daniel clenched his teeth, his hands locked with Leia's on the control matrix. Their combined energy fueled the purification field, turning the surrounding space into a battlefield between light and darkness. "Always," Leia gasped, her body pressed against his as they shared strength. "Though your timing for heroic gestures could use some work." Despite the intensity of the moment, Daniel chuckled. "Says the woman who kissed me just before we might die." "I prefer to think of it as motivation to survive," she replied, her violet eyes sparkling despite the pain they shared. "After all, we still haven't had that conversation about your arguing skills." Their playful exchange was interrupted when the largest Void Hunter ship launched a fierce counterattack. Waves of chaotic energy struck their purification field, threatening to overwhelm it. "They're adapting," Leia warned, her blue skin glowing brighter as she channeled more power. "The corruption is trying to reverse the process." Daniel dug deeper into their merged consciousness, tapping into ancient battle memories and forgotten techniques. "Then let's give them something new to adapt to." He maneuvered their joined hands into a complex pattern, reconfiguring the purification matrix. The ship's crystalline structure responded, reshaping their influence into a more intricate geometric pattern, the stellar lattice formation. Leia recognized the formation, but that requires perfect synchronization. "Good thing we've had some practice," Daniel replied. Their gazes locked, and in that moment, their connection grew even deeper. Power flowed between them like an unstoppable tide, their individual energies blending into one. The ship's crystal matrix resonated in perfect harmony as the purification field reshaped itself. Geometric patterns of pure light spread across space, ensnaring the Void Hunter ships in a web of energy. Where the lines intersected, intense points of purification power emerged, like newborn stars. "It's working," Leia exclaimed, her face alight with triumph, and something more intimate, as she looked at Daniel. "They can't adapt to our combined pattern." The corrupted ships began to change, their energy unable to resist the purification. But the strain on Daniel and Leia grew. Blood trickled from their noses as they poured more of their essence into the matrix. One final push, Daniel urged, pulling Leah closer. She smiled fiercely, as if there was ever any doubt. They moved in perfect unison, their bodies and energies fully in sync. The purification field pulsed one last time. Time and space seemed to hold their breath. Then, in a cascade of light that outshone the nearby sun, the Void Hunter fleet was transformed. Dark energy turned to light. The corruption was burned away, revealing pure star flow. The dimensional rifts collapsed, sealing the breach between realities. The immediate threat was gone, but Daniel felt Leah stumble in his arms. "Take it easy," he murmured, steadying her. "I've got you." "Always the hero," she whispered, her voice weak. "You realize this means I can't tease you about being an old man anymore." "I'm sure you'll find other ways to torment me," he replied, helping her into the command chair. His legs were shaky from the energy expenditure. "Though I have to admit, your recruitment tactics are unusual." Leia laughed softly, her hand finding his. "You mean showing up at your door and basically saying, 'Hello, I'm here to make you young again and save the universe'?" "Something like that," he said, squeezing her hand, feeling their energies still intertwined. "Though I suppose it worked out. Did it?" Her violet eyes searched his face. "The immediate threat is over, but others will come. My world still needs protection. The Guardian Order must be rebuilt." She hesitated. "It's not the quiet life you had." Daniel pulled her from the chair and into his arms. "I think we both know I was never meant for a quiet life." His fingers traced the glowing patterns on her cheek. "Besides, I have a few conditions for accepting the job permanently." Her eyebrow arched. "And those would be: first, no more secrets between us. The merged consciousness showed me enough to know there's still more to learn." Leah nodded, her expression serious, though a smile tugged at her lips. "Agreed." "And the other conditions?" she asked. As their eyes met, a warmth filled Daniel's chest. He held her gaze, his second condition clear. "We face this together as equals. No more trying to protect me from the consequences of my choices." Leia traced gentle patterns of light across his chest, her voice soft but firm. "I've spent centuries searching for you." "The instinct to protect is strong. Then we'll handle it together," Daniel replied, his hand cupping her face, his thumb caressing her glowing skin. "And that brings me to my final condition." Instead of answering, he kissed her, and in an instant, their energies merged. The star flow between them resonated, filling the ship's crystal walls with a harmonic hum. When they finally parted, both were slightly breathless. Daniel smiled. "That becomes a regular occurrence." Leia's laugh sparkled like starlight. "I believe those terms are acceptable," she said, her violet eyes glinting with mischief. "Though we might need to negotiate the frequency." A chime from the ship's console interrupted them. Data scrolled across the crystal display in an ancient script that Daniel could now read with ease. "More Void Hunter signatures," he said, though his arm remained around her. "Different sector, similar pattern." "There will always be more," Leia murmured. "That's why we need the Guardians, why we need you." She straightened, her warrior instincts taking over. "Are you truly ready for this life? The constant battles? The weight of responsibility?" Daniel smiled, a blend of wisdom and youthful vigor in his expression. "I spent decades thinking my best years were behind me, that all I had left was quiet retirement and fading memories," he said, his energy field merging with hers again. "You didn't just restore my youth, Leia. You reminded me what it truly means to live." The ship's systems adjusted to their combined will, setting a course toward the new threat. As they prepared to translocate, Leia turned in his arms. "One last chance to back out," she teased, though her eyes were serious. "We could find a quiet planet somewhere." "Not a chance," Daniel said, initiating the launch sequence, pulling her closer as the ship's crystal matrix powered up. "Besides, I seem to remember someone promising me more awakening techniques to explore." So I did." Her smile was wicked. "Though those might have to wait until after we save the next world." "Consider it motivation to work quickly," Daniel said, as the ship readied itself for lightspeed jump. He looked at their joined reflection in the crystal walls. The man he once was gone, replaced by a warrior in his prime. But more than that, he was no longer alone. In finding Leia and remembering his true nature, he had found something he hadn't expected. A future worth fighting for. Ready? Leia asked, her energy in perfect harmony with his. Ready. The ship leaped into hyperspace, carrying them toward their next battle. But as they sped between the stars, their powers and hearts intertwined. This wasn't just another mission. It was the beginning of something much greater. The crystal ship disappeared into the vastness of space, leaving behind a trail of star flow that glowed like a promise. Somewhere in the cosmos, ancient enemies trembled at the return of the Guardians, not just as warriors, but as something more. For in the merging of Daniel and Leia's powers, a new form of starflow had been born, one strengthened by understanding, trust, and love. The quiet life was over. The greatest adventure was just beginning. Dear listeners, this story is not just about cosmic battles and ancient magic. It's about discovering that it's never too late to start anew, to unlock hidden strengths, and to find true love. At the start, we met Daniel, a man who had made peace with the passing of time, locking away his dreams and memories. Many of us can relate to the feeling that our best days are behind us, with nothing but a quiet decline ahead. But Leia's arrival changed everything, not simply because she restored his youth, but because she helped him remember who he truly was. Sometimes we all need someone who can see in us what we've forgotten or no longer recognize. Their story teaches us that true strength doesn't come only from physical power or magical abilities, but from self-acceptance, a willingness to open our hearts to new experiences, and the courage to embrace our emotions. The bond between Daniel and Leia grew strongest when they stopped hiding behind the mask of duty and allowed themselves to be vulnerable with each other. While we may not have starflow or intergalactic battles in our reality, each of us has inner strength waiting to be awakened. Each of us has the opportunity to start fresh, to find a new purpose, and to experience love, regardless of age or circumstance. Remember, it's never too late to open a new chapter in your life. It's never too late for love. It's never too late to become who you were always meant to be. Look up at the stars and ask yourself, what story is waiting to begin in your life? With faith in your awakening, for in every end lies a beginning, and in every heart sleeps a guardian waiting to awaken.